This is the Redmi S2, the latest budget Snapdragon 625 phone from Xiaomi. And is this a good phone? Let's find out. So the build quality of the Redmi S2 really does not impress. This thing is plastic, doesn't feel super good, and the phone itself is actually pretty big. So in terms of bezels, it does have okay bezels, but the bezels are not the smallest you can find. So really, it doesn't look super great if you're holding it. It doesn't feel super great because it's plastic, and it's also a fairly big phone. You got fairly big bezels. The black bezels around the screen are actually not too big, but then add on to that the silver bezel that kind of comes out and back in, and you're looking at pretty decently sized bezels on the Redmi S2, which is a little bit disappointing. But hey, and the last thing as well is that I don't know what's up with Xiaomi, but honestly, they've been putting micro USB ports in literally every one of their new phones, which is super annoying. Like, just move on to USB-C already, because it's been like, what, a year since USB-C's been launched and being standard in many other phones, and you're still using micro USB in your new phones. Just get on with the times, guys. Display-wise, you're looking at an okay LCD display with okay saturation, okay colors. To be honest, if you're a regular person, I honestly don't think you'll see any issue with this display here unless you're moving from like an AMOLED display. This thing looks fine. It's just a reviewer like me being super picky and, nitpicking and little things about the display. It's just that there are a lot of other better displays out there that you can get for the same amount of money. So I really don't have much complaints about this. Actually, you know what? I do have one. And that would be the maximum brightness. This thing is already at maximum brightness, which is actually quite bad. So it's a little bit tough to see in direct sunlight. And that's probably my main complaint with the display, because it looks okay. It doesn't look amazing, but it looks okay. And touch sensitivity is also pretty good also. So no problems there. All right, so if we're talking about the audio here, it's okay. But the one thing I will say that the audio here does sound noisy. So that's one thing to be aware of. You don't get a lot of bass. The mids and highs are a little bit shrieky, if that's the right term to use. I'll let you listen for yourself, because it's pretty clear once you listen to it.
This is a sad day for Ulthwan. When Asher fights Asher within sight of the White Tower.
To be honest, battery life here is pretty much standard, exactly what I expected, which means to say that this thing gets the exact same battery life as the Xiaomi Mi 5X, which has a 3000 milliamp hour battery and a Snapdragon 625. Really the same thing, so I can get an easy 10 hours of screen on time with the Redmi S2, consisting of some Chrome, some YouTube, as well as Reddit. So really not too heavy use, no gaming in that 10 hours. But I will say that this thing has great battery life, really no complaints there. And of course, you do have quick charge, but not 3.0, just 2.0 via the micro USB at the bottom of the phone here. And of course, this phone here comes with MIUI 9 with Android 8.0, which is pretty good. I'm surprised that the Redmi S2 gets an Android 8.1, or yeah, Android 8.1, because a lot of the other more flagship phones actually still don't. And let's look at treble check. Now, looking at treble check, you do get Project Treble supported, but no seamless system updates because it does not have dual partitions. So that's a little bit sad, but it is nice that they do have support for Project Treble. But then again, MIUI is probably going to just update by itself and not follow Treble at all, which is a little bit sad, but whatever, we can deal with MIUI later. And as always, MIUI's optimization is excellent. Everything feels very smooth and very fast. Really no problems with the animations, as well as doing simple stuff like swiping or moving between home screens. No problem at all. And of course, once you start moving to opening apps, the Snapdragon 625 does an amazing job, because Xiaomi has had a ton of time to optimize for the Snapdragon 625, because they've released it in pretty much every single phone, which is a bit annoying to me, but whatever. At least they've had the time to optimize it very, very good. So that's really not a problem. Launching apps is going to be very, very fast. You're really not going to have any issues with app launch times here at all. It's very, very good. And here, let's talk gaming. The Snapdragon 625 does a pretty admirable job with gaming. And I think Xiaomi has had a ton of time to optimize for the Snapdragon 625. So really no problems here. I really don't see any issue with gaming. That's of course to say at lower settings, because if you're playing at the highest settings, that is going to be a bit of a problem. You're probably not going to be able to get great frame rates, because This is definitely not a flagship level processor, so it will be tough to get good frame rates on such a processor like this. You will be able to play PUBG on this. It does work pretty decently, but again, low settings, otherwise you're not going to be able to play properly. All right, and looking at the fingerprint sensor here, it's good. It's fast, it's accurate, really no problems here. I really don't have any complaints. I can use the fingerprint sensor daily and I wouldn't have a problem with it. This phone comes with the usual bands in Xiaomi phones, bands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, which will be good enough for AT&T and T-Mobile in the States. And in Canada, of course, Bell, Rogers are completely supported, but not Kudu or TELUS. And if you are in Europe, it is fully supported also, so no complaints at all with the connectivity. Speeds are good. I really didn't have any, I didn't see any issues, and calling quality is also good, so no complaints there. And of course, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS, they all work pretty standard for a Snapdragon 625, which is to say it's good. All right, moving on to the camera quality here. I don't know. I'm surprised by how mediocre it is. Okay, so that's not accurate either. I won't say it's mediocre, but I will say it is mediocre for a Xiaomi phone. This thing has a worse camera, in my opinion, than the Xiaomi Mi 5X and the Xiaomi Redmi 5 Plus, Redmi Note 5. There is a reason for that, and I will get into that later, but for now, let's talk about why I think this camera is not as good as it could be. If you're looking at color saturation, is actually not bad. You do get some decent color saturation, especially in these yellow flowers and the green grass, so it looks nice. The detail is there, but it's not super detailed. To be honest, the detail on the UMI A1 Pro is actually fairly close to what you get here. And the UMI A1 Pro does have the the MTK 6739, which is surprising. And the other thing to note is that sometimes these photos can look a little bit cartoony, kind of like the cel-shaded cartoony style, very, very slight, and you have to look on a big screen, like a 32-inch screen at least, to see that. Detail is good, I will say that, and overall composition is decent, but I have to say that the overall picture is just not as good as what you find on the Redmi 5 Plus, Redmi Note 5, or even the Xiaomi Mi 5X. The other thing to note is that this thing cannot really focus on objects that are too close to the camera, so that can be an issue also. But that being said, the quality of the camera is good enough for most people, I think, especially in good lighting conditions. You can take some good photos. And talking about HDR mode here works decently. It doesn't work well most of the time. In fact, HDR mode here works worse than what you find on the Mi 5X, which is surprising. And the shutter speed here is okay. It's actually not bad. My dog moving, I can take some pretty good photos also, so not a problem. So I will qualify all this by saying that you can take some very good photos with this camera. It's just more difficult to do that than, say, the Mi 5X or the Redmi Note 5, which is a little bit disappointing, but then again, this is a budget phone. And probably the reason why the camera here, back camera, is not as good is because they poured a lot of money into the front camera. This is billed as a selfie phone. So the selfies are supposed to be good, but to be honest, they're actually not that great. I was expecting a better camera because they were like, oh, this is going to be a great selfie camera, guys, but it's not that great. And I'm surprised with the video quality because you actually cannot take 4K video. You can only take 1080p. And I think this is a way Xiaomi is differentiating between the Redmi S2 as well as the Redmi Note 5 line, and that they disabled 4K specifically because they want you to be able to buy the Redmi Note 5 instead of this for a better, 4K video recording in order to further differentiate the Redmi S2 from the more expensive Redmi Note 5. The 1080p quality here is okay, really nothing to write home about because it is just 1080p. I gotta say it's a decent phone, but to be honest, there are so many phones in Xiaomi's lineup that are similar to this that I really don't know why you would buy this. This thing cost about $160, which is very cheap for the specifications, but you can get a lot of other Xiaomi phones with the same or better specifications for just $10 more. For example, you can actually get the Redmi Note 5 Pro with the Snapdragon 636 for about $175, which is an absolute steal compared to the Redmi S2. Again, I'm not sure why they released this phone. I might be wrong again because I've said that before, and I was wrong back then, and I might be wrong now, but I really don't know why you would buy the Redmi S2 when you can just buy the Redmi 5 Plus, which, to be honest, is a better phone than this in every aspect. There really isn't anything in this that the Redmi 5 Plus doesn't have, except for maybe a higher megapixel count for the front camera. But then again, the front camera here doesn't actually take that great photos either. So are you going to buy the Redmi S2? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell to make sure you're notified of any of the latest videos I upload. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.